Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. My name is Sigrid Newell, and I am the Service Associate today. Before we begin, please check to make sure your microphone is muted. You can also turn your camera off if your image is potentially distracting. Please also be mindful of your speech while on Zoom, as microphones can accidentally become unmuted. This will minimize any disruption of our service. You will notice closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to turn that off or on, find the CC option on your Zoom toolbar and select the up arrow to access it. Thanks so much for your cooperation. This is now the time of transition from ordinary time to sacred time. Time to check in with your body, to collect your attention, to be present in this moment. Let this moment be separated from yesterday and tomorrow. May this virtual space be a sanctuary, become a sanctuary for the next hour. Allow your screen to transform into a virtual community hall. To experience images, sounds, and music, songs, poetry, and prose that will lift your heart, broaden your mind, and move you to do justice in the world in the service of building beloved community. May this virtual service be holy time for each of us that joins us together in the celebration of life. Our prelude this morning is invisible to me. Otra vez, Antonio Carlos Jobim, musician Elena Karpov. Please join in the Chalice Lighting words shown on the screen. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. Next, we'll sing a unison song. The words will appear on the screen. Please join in singing Voice Still and Small by John Corrado, who was a minister here many, many years ago. The song leader will be Elena Karpov. Welcome to our viewers from Facebook who will be joining us now for our service. I am Sigrid Newell, and I am the Service Associate today. This morning, we welcome to our pulpit the Reverend Eileen Casey-Campbell, who is a Unitarian Universalist minister serving the UU Church of Canandaigua, New York. She shares a life with her partner, Brian, their children, Rory and Ewan, and their goofy dog, Pepper. Eileen is a yoga teacher who is also particularly called to social justice work, creative worship, and to ministry with youth and young adults. She loves the spiritual practice of learning to create with her own hands, art, bread, gardens, knitted caps, and more.
Thank you, Sigrid. And I am so glad to be here with you this morning. I watched all your names and faces join the Zoom meeting, and I just can't stop grinning over here to see all these familiar folks. And I so wish I could be in Albany with you, hugging each and every one of you, but someday. So my older child, Rory, who you might remember as a 1-year-old, is 5, and he's raising monarch caterpillars. He learned in one of far too many YouTube videos about insects that monarchs are 80% more likely to survive to their butterfly stage if they're raised in captivity. So this bug-loving kid is checking every milkweed leaf for eggs, We have a whole monarch operation going on in our dining room, and I have learned a lot about these little creatures. So they start out as an egg the size of a pencil point on the underside of a leaf. And after a few days, the egg turns black. And just when you think it's surely dead, a tiny caterpillar emerges, nearly as thin as a human hair. They start eating milkweed and they grow and grow and grow. They double in size every couple of days. Then when they're at the end of their caterpillar life, they choose a sturdy spot and do what we've started calling a J hang, hanging in the shape of the letter J. And this is the coolest part. They shed their last skin and they don't go into a chrysalis, but their caterpillar body becomes a chrysalis filled with, honestly, scientists aren't 100% sure what, but some kind of proto-butterfly goop. And then out of the goop, this delicate, strikingly beautiful monarch butterfly emerges. And the container, the chrysalis, which was the body of the caterpillar, falls away. It's amazing. And I want to suggest to us this morning that your body, our bodies, are no less amazing than a monarch's. And I'm not kidding even a little, this is why we come to church. Because bodies are awesome in the biblical sense. Bodies are amazing, and I know they're complicated as well. They can do incredible things like climb mountains and sleep through the night and make new bodies and blush with excitement and laugh and cry. And they also do difficult things like get cancer and ache around the joints whenever it rains and host viruses and lose abilities they once had. And that's complicated emotionally. I'm not going to pretend today like it isn't. But we come here on Sundays because this church, because our UU community orients us in awe toward the mysteries of life. It orients us in delight toward our own bodies, in love toward all the bodies of this earth. I'm so glad to be here today. I'd like to share a reading with you as we sink into this service. This morning's reading is by Virgie Tovar, and it's from her book of essays called Hot and Heavy. She writes, I was born into a world where fat women are outlaws. A band of lawless revolutionaries fighting against myopic standards of beauty and archaic forms of femininity. A world where fat women are like Che Guevara meets RuPaul, like Thelma and Louise meets Madonna, the stuff of legends and fantasies. We are the eaters of creme brulee and tiramisu. We are cupcake warriors, sensualists, plus-size queens. We are flag bearers in a turgidly anti-pleasure society. Fat is a delicious, cute little word. The F and the A slip off the tongue as if they were dipped together in melty mascarpone. And the hard T at the end reminds you that there's a little punch to whomever is graced with that title. Oddly, the F word is used to scare women, but it doesn't scare me. My fat is political because when I show it off, it really seems to piss people off. My fat is political because I'm keeping it. My fat is political because it's hot. My fat is my flag, my claim to fame, my battle scar, my secret fat girl society badge. I live in a time of unprecedented freedom for women, the daughter born of immigrant dreams and feminist fantasies. I have the freedom to own a company, terminate a pregnancy, remain single, and yet my freedom to be fat is heavily contested by my government, my community, my television set. The war on obesity had created a platform for polemicists to comment on the immorality of fat parents and for scientists to describe the alleged dumbing effects of fat on the brain. As Don Kulik and Anne Menely succinctly stated in Fat, the Anthropology of an Obsession, it isn't just a chemical or biological fact, they wrote. It is also a supremely cultural fact. Discussions of fat people, especially women, become texts, documents, artifacts that we must dissect, analyze, and explore as the deeply flawed public health sector decries fatness as medical pathology, an epidemic that threatens us. We hear the familiar sounds of an age-old reminder: be good. In the face of such platitudinous admonitions stands a bunch of big-ass, mouthy fat girls who wear fuchsia and feathers and who walk out into the world with bellies exposed and a certain finger raised. Take heed. Our bodies, our attitudes belie the polemics, unveil the truth that being good doesn't get you much besides the title. Our day in the sun is only as far as we make it. And for those of us willing to forsake good, there is a deliciousness of a different kind to be had. Here ends the morning's reading. I invite you now into a time of centering, followed by some shared breaths together. So let's get comfortable in our seats. Let our shoulders fall away from our ears. Maybe close our eyes. Relax our faces and be held. Between the pangs of childbirth, I thought of Tiamat, that ancient sea goddess split in half to create the world. Creation tore me apart and, oh, yup, screamed my every muscle. I get it now. I had forgotten for a moment. The postscript those clever Semites added, and the gods said it was good. A world born out of the swirling waters of chaos, and God said it was good. A world with fat baby cheeks and sun-dappled forests, and chamomile tea with rye toast, and skinny dipping at sunrise just because you're 19. So utterly good divinity weighs in to proclaim it so. A world with tyrants and genocides, disease and hurricanes, waste and white supremacy and socks that slip down inside your boot, and pain so bad you think surely it will split you apart. And still, we promise ourselves to whichever God can love even this shit, because with a love like that, pulsing in the waters of the deep, we can be pulled utterly apart and still somehow weep at the goodness of it all. Let's take 3 slow breaths together, friends. Here we are, somehow in the middle of summer, in spite of hoping and waiting for it all year. I'm always caught off guard by summer. And then it seems to sneak past me like the rabbits devouring my garden. But those very rabbits and so many other signs are out there heralding midsummer's arrival. The afternoons are sticky and sweaty. Children run and shout through the neighborhood all day. The black-cap raspberries are peeking from out from under their brambles. The monarchs are hatching. And my social media news feeds are filled with a tidal wave of advertisements promising to make me smaller. A magic pill that will cause me to shed pounds and definitely isn't a laxative in disguise. Sales on shapewear, which those in the know will tell you is not clothing designed to exalt the shape of you, but to compress it into something more acceptable. And 10 hot tips to get you a bikini body before your vacation. So I thought I'd help you all out by starting today with my own hot tips for getting that bikini body this summer. By this afternoon, if you have beach plans today. So here it is, just 2 simple steps to get yourself the thing you've surely always dreamed of, a bikini body. Step 1, procure a bikini. Easy enough, right? Wait till you hear the next bit. Step 2, put the bikini on your body. There you have it. There is a bikini on your body. You have now achieved the ever elusive bikini body. Now, okay, maybe you're not a bikini person. I get that. To be honest, I'm more of a sports bra and board shorts person myself, as someone who's only half-assing femininity. Maybe you favor the sleek agility of a Speedo, the freedom of skinny dipping, maybe the warmth of a full wetsuit. But also, maybe you believe, not with your reasonable brain, but somewhere deep and primal, that yours is not the right kind of body for a bikini. Maybe you feel you are the wrong gender or size or shape or color for that. Maybe you've been told for a lifetime by Instagram ads and magazines and television, and I'm so sorry, your best friends or your own mom, that there is a right kind of body for a bikini and yours is not it. That we only put certain bodies on display, that only certain bodies ought to feel the sunshine all over their skin, to feel beautiful or sexual or deserve delight. That the bodies who deserve those things are young and white and cisgendered and thin. That is a lie. That is an obvious lie, right? But it's a pervasive lie. So I have to admit to you that my easy 2-step plan leads perhaps to a hidden 3rd step of dismantling that lie within you. So, okay, 1, get a bikini. 2, put it on your body. 3, pull apart all the lies of fat phobia that inhabit your lovely bikini body. Pull them apart with your therapist. Stop to challenge them while you scroll through Instagram, when your friends talk about their diets while you're sitting in church. I hope that we can hold that kind of gentleness for ourselves and others as we feel the warmth of summer on our skin. I hope that we can be grateful we survived this year. Be proud we did our best to protect our neighbors. Be gentle with the trauma it has embedded in us. I hope also we can look at the future with a softness that we don't usually allow ourselves. I hope fervently that not a single one of us is going to respond to the greetings of the glorious summer sun by starting a diet. I hold so many hopes for us, and none of them are about becoming smaller. And I know this is a loaded and tender thing to be talking about. It is a loaded and tender thing to hope for. But we've got to talk about diet culture as a church, as a movement. We've got to talk about fat liberation, because what it can tell us about liberation in general and about our own oppression is enormous. Because we know nobody is free until all of us are free. Injustice for anybody is a threat to all our bodies. So I want to ask us for 3 shifts in the way we talk that feel radical, but really aren't. First is the simplest shift toward accuracy of language, but it may change the way we function every day. Food isn't healthy or unhealthy. I'm going to say it again. Food isn't healthy or unhealthy. I want us so badly, I want us to stop talking about food that way. Living things have health, humans, plants, animals, the planet. I am at times healthy, at other times not healthy. You are as well. Health is a state of being that doesn't apply to food. Bodies are healthy or not in varying degrees and in varying ways. Food is nutritious or not in varying degrees and in varying ways for various bodies. That's all I'll say about nutrition, because it isn't my job to be a nutrition expert, to know and discuss the nutritional value of food. It is my job to wrestle with morality, to talk about the moral value of food, And as long as we assign morality to what and how much we eat, it will be my job, our job as a people of faith, to talk about it. It's our job as a church that believes all bodies are sacred blessings interwoven in the web of life. So here's another non-radical shift we need to make in the way we think about food and bodies. Food is morally neutral. Food has no morality, not in the way we tend to think. Now, all day long, we should go on ahead and grapple with the morality of where our food comes from and who harvests it and whose lives and work and bodies are sacrificed for us to eat. Those are the moral questions about food that matter. But there aren't good foods and bad foods, not good for me foods and bad for me foods. And when we make a moral claim like this food is so bad, we're not meaning because it lived and died in a factory feedlot, are we? And when we say this food is good or good for us, we don't mean because Zach and Annie pulled it out of the ground instead of it being harvested by slave labor, do we? The type and amount of food we eat has no moral value. I know because I was also raised in this food restrictive, diet-centered, control-loving capitalist heteropatriarchy that some of us are uncomfortable with that. I know because the same discomfort lives in me. So gently, I will say it again. The type and amount of food we eat has no moral value. Let us throw right in the garbage the idea that spinach is a good food and donuts are a bad food. That is a bogus moral distinction. That isn't a robust ethical framework for living, and we owe ourselves better than that. Our cultural moralizing of food, leading to modern diet culture, started in the 19th century by folks like Sylvester Graham of graham cracker fame, and John Kellogg, yes, that Kellogg, co-inventor of the cornflake. They and a whole movement of white American Protestants behind them advocated a narrowly restricted and bland diet to discourage people from meeting their body's need for pleasure in really all the ways. Unsurprisingly, the moral purity that they assigned to cuisine was an extension of the moral purity mindset of the also growing movement of eugenics. Yes, diet culture and eugenics have been friends all along. Unsurprisingly, the belief that some bodies are good and some aren't has always been a convenient bridge between dieting and racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia. The idea that bodies need to be controlled, restricted, that pleasure is wrong, that bodily intuition is not to be trusted. That is the foundation for all these intersecting oppressions. And they have always intersected here. Dieting, anti-fatness has always been a eugenicist position, that some bodies shouldn't exist. And friends, white supremacy doesn't need any more of our help. So let me ask you for a third shift in perspective today. I want us to integrate this truth into our very bodies. Bodies are morally neutral. The size and shape of our bodies is morally neutral. There is no ideal of the right size body, no shape that is more correct than another, no health status that is morally superior to another. And to suggest that someone ought to be a different size or shape than what they are is not so far a cry from suggesting that someone ought to be a different color or gender from what they are. So if we participate in any rites of summer, any rituals to greet the bright and glorious sunlight, let it be for us to reject the message of a culture that maintains that control, restriction, denial of pleasure, disconnection from our bodies is any good for us. Sometimes what our bodies need is spinach. And sometimes what our bodies need is a donut. Because our bodies need celebration and delight at least as much as they need fiber and folate. It is our job to listen deeply to our bodies, to understand what they need. And none of us can do that without fat liberation, without rejecting the culture that prioritizes control over our body's intuition, that says there is a right kind of body and a wrong kind. And my friends who are undoubtedly feeling conflicted about the so-called obesity epidemic, this is not just a moral proposition. Stacks on stacks of scientific research bear this out. Our bodies do not need the restriction of diets. In fact, they're terribly detrimental for us. And there exists no shred of scientific data that calorie restriction causes long-term weight loss at all, or that weight loss is necessary for health. So civility aside, because other people's health is not your business, the health signaling is a false flag. We're not going to do that, okay? It is the lie of a system that values restriction over liberation. There is no world in which the discrimination faced by people with fat bodies, the control and restriction faced by people with any body, is healthy for us. Liberation is healthy for us. And I'll be real with you, because this is a vulnerable topic for so many of us. I tell you, as a person of pretty average size, whose weight has fluctuated over a range of about 100 pounds in my adult life, even at my thinnest, I never felt thin enough. Even when I made myself as small as I possibly could, I was never small enough to feel okay. Because this is a culture that values not health or even thinness itself, but the willingness to be controlled. A system that values the millstone of personal responsibility over collective care. And this is why, no matter the size of your body, we all need fat liberation. If our society, our nation cared about the health of our bodies, then it would ensure that everyone is housed and fed and has health care and is free from the embodied trauma of poverty and racism and discrimination. Instead, what we get from the center of power is rabid individualism, cloaked in the mantle of concern for personal health, right? Personal responsibility. If the ongoing pandemic has taught us anything in the last year, it's that our responsibilities are held in common, not individually. And that, in fact, doubling down on individualism will quite literally be the death of us if we let it. I breathe the air that you breathe. Your microbes are mine. Your body is tied to mine and all the others with 1,000 million holy threads of connection. And never will personal responsibility matter if collective care does not. I cannot have any health or healing or liberation without all of you. No amount of reverence at the altar of personal responsibility will make me whole. Only care and connection to my fellow beings in this web of life can do that. Bowing to the shrine of diet culture is just one of many ways our society tries to cut apart this web and make it smaller, to make us smaller. So I'm asking us to say that the shape of our bodies is morally neutral, to find a way to undo in ourselves the lies of this pious restriction, individualist shaming, that kind of control of our bodies, the devotion to personal responsibility is as abhorrent to our faith as devotion to a personal savior. Fat liberation is Unitarian Universalist, because ours is a faith that says we go together if we go at all. We get free together if we get free at all. We are healed, whole, healthy together or not at all. We could start by doing the work of fat liberation in our own bodies and in our church bodies, by interrogating the impulse we may feel to categorize anyone's body as less than okay, by examining whether our spaces are accessible to fat bodies the way we make sure they're accessible to bodies in wheelchairs or queer bodies or Black and brown bodies. As communities, we need to be asking, Is it safe to be fat here? Is it comfortable? Is it delightful? Because it's a harm to fat bodies and all bodies whenever we choose order and control over embodied pleasure. Let us not cut ourselves off from delight in the web of life. Instead, let's choose softness, wonder, joy for our bodies. Let us imagine ourselves not smaller, but so much bigger than we are. Because we know our beautiful bodies to be connected to every other body in this cosmos. And what a radical delight that is to remember. May it be so. Amen.
An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution via one of the options shown on this slide. You can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples on the slide show how to label your text to indicate the amount and purpose or intent of your gift. We must now say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time by visiting albanyuu.org. Our offertory music this morning is The Joke by Brandy Carlisle, David Cobb Jr., Philip and Timothy Hanseroth.
Now is the time set aside in our service for sharing significant personal milestones in our lives. There are 3 ways to share a joy or sorrow. The first option is to type your joy or sorrow in the chat window. Please put the words "read aloud" at the beginning of your message if you would like us to do that. Please also consider connecting privately with me. I am the PCA on duty today, and you can find my name with PCA. And the second option is to click on the blue raised hand symbol in the participant window. Our technician will unmute you and to speak your joy or sorrow. The third option is to submit a joy or sorrow using our website by noon on Friday prior to the service. We'll begin by reading those that were submitted this past week. Then we'll hear the spoken joys and sorrows, followed by the chat entries to be read aloud.
Okay, I did not receive any pre-submitted joys or sorrows, so we'll move right into the live ones, indicated by a blue hand. All right, we start with Julie Lameau. Julie, please unmute and share your joy.
It'll be good for everybody to watch the UU services too, but no one does.
Hello, yes. Okay, well, I'll be celebrating my 80th birthday on this coming Saturday. And fortunately, I'm feeling really healthy and don't feel 80 at all. But this the sermon ties right into it because I made Rob take me to 677 Prime where I'm going to pig out and not feel guilty. So.
Great, thank you,
Okay,
Julie.
that's it.
We move now to Karen DeWillers. Karen, please unmute and share.
Well, I have both a joy and a scare. Despite the sermon, I've been trying to lose weight so I can have knee replacement surgery. and I reached that goal. Yay. However, they discovered myofibroblastoma in my right breast, and I need to see, quote, the best breast surgeon in Albany tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So joy for one and terror for the other.
Right. Thank you for sharing.
Best of luck.
Thank you. It's usually benign. That's what they told me. But my family history is checkered with breast cancer. So I'm not 100% sure the pathology group was right.
Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers, toes, arms, and eyes. How's that?
Right.
Yes.
Anyone else? All right. Looks like we should move on to the chat entries.
This is from Tanya Hoteling. Tom is progressing at Sunnyview 316. Would enjoy visitors. Tanya is having back issues. Will this trying time end? So sorry to hear about your back and glad to hear Tom's progressing. Let me go through these. Thank you. And from Barbara Spink, my vaccinated daughter caught a, quote, cold, which turned out to be COVID. She should be okay, but has to isolate. Oh boy, sorry to hear that, Barb. And from Nelson Jacobs Moore to everyone, joy, I am back in New York from Florida. My son and his wife are expecting their second daughter. And sorrow, I am finding a place of my own much more difficult than I expected. It is a tough time to look for that. Wishing you success. And from Jeffrey Wright, Sedum, blessings to Karen. And I think that is it for the read alouds. And now for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken, let us hold all that we've heard and felt in our hearts.
Our hearts are full today. So let's take a moment with all that they hold. We hold concern and care for Tanya, Karen, Nelson. We celebrate with Julie and Nelson's new grandbaby the miracle of being born or being about to be born. We celebrate Tom's progress. We hold Barbara's daughter in our hearts and all those still wrapped so tightly in the life of the pandemic, especially the most vulnerable among us, people with immune compromises and children. All these and the joys and sorrows that lay quietly in our hearts, we hold them this morning, but they are all lighter in the knowledge that we hold them with one another. We hold them in common. And we remember the words of the prophet Mary Oliver as we hold all of what we do. You do not have to be good. You just have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Amen. And now let's sing our closing hymn, Let All the Beauty We Have Known, led by Elena Karpov. Let us extinguish our chalices together with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I want to offer as a benediction these words of my colleague C.B. Beale. Bodies are awesome. All the bodies, all the sizes, all the shapes, all the abilities. Bodies are awesome. Everyone should get one. Amen.
And now we give our thanks to all the people who have helped us this morning. The musicians, Elena Karpoff and Chris Jensen, Pastoral Care Associate Sharon Babila, me, Sigrid Newell, the Service Associate, technical support from Chris Jensen, ushers, Kristen Abbott, Sharon Babila, and Kathy Harris, welcomer, Don Odell, office support, Tammy Hathaway, and Patience Becca. And we have any announcements this morning?